Giannis is in the Bay Area. Not clickbait, but what are the chances that he stays in the Bay Area? Any chance at all? Evan Giddings on today's show. Let's break it down.
You are Locked On Warriors.
Stop trying to turn the page on us so fast.
Your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
We got 4 championships.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Every team has a chance if Steph's on the team.
Your team every day.
What's good, everyone? Welcome to the Locked On Warriors. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Ways that you can check out our program. We're on YouTube. Like, subscribe, hit that bell so you know whenever we go live. You can also take us on the go wherever you get your audio podcasts. My name's Charlie Walter, formerly at 95.7 The Game in the Bay Area. That is the flagship station. Your Golden State Warriors also cover the team for CBS News Bay Area. The call letters there are KPIX. Evan Giddings was a co-host of mine, producer, 95.7 The Game, hosts Warriors Post. You can hear him when you're driving home from Chase Center or after a road game. You can hear the sweet tunes of Evan Giddings, the sweet baritone. Also, St. Mary's Gales basketball. If you're a fan of Hoops and Moraga, you can hear him on the radio call. Evan, I thought we were going to get into some talk about some of the rotation players, maybe how Brandon Podziemski and Moses Moody could take the next step. I sent you a little bit of the rundown, and you said, Chuck, we take advantage of Giannis being in the Bay Area. I did not think we were going to be talking about it much this offseason, despite all the speculation of, hey, they could be taking some phone calls. It just seems like an impossibility. But when you hear he's in the Bay Area, you got to at least talk about it. What are your thoughts of a potential package that could return Giannis? I mean, first of all, the only way for it to happen is for Giannis to demand a trade to the Bay Area. Aside from that, open market, like, Warriors don't have the goods to get it done. What's up, man?
I mean, this is what the summer's all about, right? This is what the NBA is about. It's about drama. It's about the off season. It's about cooking whatever we got in the gumbo pot. And right now his name is Giannis Antetokounmpo. So look, he is not officially asked out. I think that's what everyone is speculating he will do. And I just find it interesting, Chuck, that he's in San Francisco. Yes, for a Google developer conference. However, I don't know. I have to imagine the Warriors are at least within earshot, perhaps trying to get him out. Obviously, the report over All-Star Weekend was he was the only star not of the Golden State Warriors. That was at Steph Curry's exclusive party that Saturday before the Sunday game. So, look, I think there's a very slim chance this happens. But, Chuck, why do I just feel like why is he doing this to us, man? Why is he showing up in San Francisco right after these trade movers start to swirl? Why is he getting our hopes up?
Be fun to see, wouldn't it? But you also got to take a step back and ask the question, like, why would it make sense for him? I mean, obviously he could be the next face when Steph was gone. He's always wanted to play with Curry, or at least it seems like it from some of the comments about Curry being his favorite 2K guy and Curry being the best point guard he's ever seen, one of the best players, his white whale to play with. But you got to factor in the age thing. Does it make more sense to go somewhere else and potentially be the guy? And does it make sense to leave Milwaukee? Because he's been pretty loyal to this point. One thing I want to ask, see in the chat, you say there's a mad echo. Evan, can you hear any sort of an echo? I only say this because we got a radio audience. We got the YouTube audience. And the last thing I want to do is go 30 minutes with bad audio. So let me know if that's an issue. But
I got you loud and clear. I got you loud and clear.
Back to Giannis.
Yeah, look, the fact that he's in San Francisco is noteworthy, to say the least. And it might just be absolute fluff. I told you 7 days ago I thought there was no chance. But the more you think about it, if Giannis does not have another location in mind, there's absolutely a possibility, because the Milwaukee Bucks cannot afford to not trade him if he asks out. The Warriors also have replenished their coffers as far as draft capital is concerned. And I have to imagine, if you're the Bucks, who have very few future first-round picks that they've spent trying to acquire Drew Holiday, Damian Lillard, all these players for Giannis, that the Warriors' first-round picks after Steph Curry is probably either going to be A, not as good as he is currently, or B, perhaps retired. Those first-round picks look very, very attractive. And while I don't think the Warriors would be wise to give them up, if there's an opportunity to get Giannis Antetokounmpo, that is an all-in, push your chips into the middle of the table type move.
Yeah, and the Bucks need some picks because they have swaps in there, right? To where they're not going to own their pick for the next few seasons. So it's been well documented that the best route for the Bucks is to still field a competitive team, just do it in a different way if Giannis does indeed want out. And that different way could be a combination of Butler, Kuminga, and Pajemski. Like, there are some sweeteners in there for the Warriors to potentially get it done. The only way to do it, though, is if a ton of things break in the Warriors' favor, with the biggest one being, and really the only one that matters being, I want to go to Golden State. Unless those words are said, like, probably going to be an impossibility, right?
Yeah, no, Giannis has to force his way to Golden State. That's really the only reason that we're having this conversation. There's been reports about him wanting to play in a tax-free state. There's been reports about him wanting to play in the Eastern Conference and not go to the West. But if you're the Warriors, or really if you're just a fan of Golden State basketball and you see Giannis Antetokounmpo in San Francisco at a Google Center hyping up the crowd, which he was today on Tuesday, May 20th, you start to tingle a little bit, man. You start to wish and wonder, and I think that's completely fair.
Did I see the wrong man in attendance, or was Doc Rivers at the Valkyries game? You saw that too? You saw Joe Lacob sitting there with Kuminga, and and we saw a video from earlier in the year, Steph kind of dapping up Giannis and saying, "Let's go, man, come on." We always got something to point to.
I mean, you got to read as many tea leaves as you can. I do know that Doc Rivers. So Natalie Nakase, the head coach for the Valkyries, she was on the Clippers coaching staff when Rivers was there, and is a mentor of Rivers is a mentor of Nakase. So he was there in as much as support as to, perhaps just mingle a little bit with Joe Lacob. There was a video that obviously went viral of them dapping up after the game and Doc chatting with JK. Who knows? Maybe the Milwaukee Bucks are higher on a few of the Warriors players than we believe. But again, this is all something that we're going to have to wait and see on. I think it's just really fun to speculate and try and dive deep into the drama that is the NBA offseason.
All right, we got a lot to get into on today's show. Jonathan Kuminga, were he to be a sign and trade target, and it sounds like that door's been opened, but not to the point where it's wide open and it's, hey, we're 100% moving on. There's still the option that the Warriors could not find the value they think they have in Jonathan Kuminga, and it could be, the start of next season running this thing back in terms of what we thought it could be when Kuminga originally came back from that ankle injury. Trade candidates around the board. I heard some interesting ones on some other podcasts the last few days. I've thrown out some ridiculous hypotheticals, some ones that make sense. We'll get Evan's opinion on that. Who are the not expensive options the Warriors could go with? And then the center position. They have a few in-house that had their flashes. Are the Warriors going to bank on more internal development and kind of a smaller centerpiece, maybe a draft pick? Or is it going to be something where they spend some money, they go out there and get a proven center? We're debating all these things coming up on Locked On Warriors. All right, let's tell you about our friends over at CarGurus. When you're shopping for a car, it should be exciting. It should not be exhausting, but there's an issue: confusing prices, hidden fees. Sometimes it's overwhelming, and that is why we love CarGurus. They help you cut through the noise and show you the best deals, and they do it. They make you do it with full confidence. There's over 4 million listings, so they have more new and used cars than any other major online marketplace in the U.S. They verify dealers. They provide real price analysis. They give you the tools and the data to make the right choice without second-guessing yourself. One of my favorite things about it, price drop alerts. You'll know exactly when the perfect car is available for your budget. Plus, the in-depth vehicle details gives you peace of mind before stepping onto any lot. So it's no wonder similar web estimated traffic data shows CarGurus as the #1 most visited car shopping site, and still growing when you get on board. So buy or sell your next car today with CarGurus at CarGurus.com. Go to CarGurus.com to make sure your big deal is the best deal. That's CarGurus.com. CarGurus.com. Let's get back to the show. Jonathan Kuminga, one of the biggest pieces to the Warriors getting better, whether it's internally, and Kuminga just fits in more with this offense. They get Butler to work with him in the offseason, and he continues to, compound on what he did to end the season. And that look impressive, man. Like, let's just start there before we get into any speculation, because I don't think we've had a chance to really break this down since the last time we talked. What he did in the Wolves series, granted, all in losses, right? But when you give him the keys, when you say it's time to go, we need 20 points from you, he does it like that, man. Just hops right back into a system that he has not been getting minutes in for a while and gets above the rim, looks good in transition, hits some threes, has that turnaround that's a part of his bag, was cutting at the right times, was playing well off Jimmy Butler. I think he played himself, and granted, I think there was enough speculation surrounding him, enough tape before all this happened to where teams are interested in him. But I think at this point, there are plenty of GMs out there that think, all right, this is just a Warriors system that caters to a certain type of player. They have to play well with Steph Curry. We don't have Steph Curry in Brooklyn or Chicago or whatever it may be. He may be a value piece to this team and someone that has potential up this way. What'd you think of his overall performance to end the season?
I don't know how you couldn't be impressed by it. I realized that, like you said, none of them led to wins. He was DMP'd for a reason. The reasons are obvious, and we don't have to relitigate them. But the fact that you stepped in cold at 22 years of age in the first real postseason series that you had to play in as a starter and led your team in scoring, that cannot be undercut. I mean, that to me is extremely impressive. And so, Chuck, even if it's a showcase, even if it's the last time we see Kuminga in a jersey, I do think that there's going to be a lot of fans who can fairly assess the situation and say, what if? You know, it isn't like the Jordan Poole thing where we saw it and we saw how it fizzled. And obviously there was a big reason, a literal fist as to why that didn't work out. But the Kuminga thing is something that if they trade him, we will never get to see what his true potential is. And who knows? I don't think it's going to be as a superstar, a franchise cornerstone player, but it might be as a really damn good, impactful player. And especially at a position of need, I do think that there's a lot of people that watched the end of that series, the final 4 games, and are now saying, well, is there a way that we can make this work? And Steve Kerr saying we got to experiment with him at the beginning of next season if he's here. That might open a lot of eyes around the Warriors. And then if you're a team around the league, you absolutely are saying, how can I get that Kuminga? Because he walked in cold, averaged 21 points, shot over 40% from three-point range, and wasn't a stiff defensively. And again, it's his first playoff series and he's 22. So I absolutely think as far as showcase is concerned, he gets an A+ from me.
And when you say wasn't a stiff defensively, I thought he was awesome on Edwards. Like he was active with his hands. He was moving his feet, was giving Edwards some hell out there, or at least comparatively to everyone else. You know, looked like he was in the same realm as Edwards athletically, which can't be understated, right? Like you have tape of that. You see some of the potential he has there. What would constitute as a move if you were in the GM spot to where you'd feel comfortable getting rid of him? Because right? Like there's a way to make this work with Kuminga when it's all said and done. I don't think it's as, Kobe, Shaq back in the day by the end of it. Maybe not the best comparison, but, it was just like, this probably isn't going to work. It's too tumultuous. I think there are ways to kind of repair it, at least for now, to where, you kind of guarantee Kuminga a certain role, but you think about a team like the Brooklyn Nets or the Chicago Bulls that may have master plans for him. If you allow the conversations to kind of fizzle up, Kuminga hears about, his role in Chicago or Miami, Atlanta, whatever spot it could potentially be. I mean, there's a lot for him to like. Let's put it that way, potentially, to where you can find a way to make both sides happy, to scratch each other's back, so to say. Cam Johnson of the Brooklyn Nets, who can shoot it, can flat out shoot the ball, seems like he'd fit in this system, gives you positional size. Would that do it for you, that type of player? Is that way too wishful thinking that you could get someone that good and we should be thinking more mid-level guys? Like, what do you think in regards to his value this offseason?
Well, I think anybody who plays alongside Steph Curry is going to be better, but and maybe I'm in a small camp, Chuck. I really don't know about players on losing teams that put up numbers. Like those guys don't really excite me. Cam Johnson's a good player, but where I see the biggest hole in the Warriors roster is the fact that outside of Steph and at times Jimmy Butler, because I think he was injured, but might be showing his age a bit more than we thought. They need someone who can create a shot. They need someone who can create a shot for not just themselves, but for others. And I think that while Kuminga is certainly able to get his own, his next stage of development is to be able to create for others. I don't think that Cameron Johnson creates really for himself or others. And so eventually I think the Warriors are going to run into a similar problem. He's certainly a more consistent shooter than a Buddy Hield. He's got more experience. He's been in a finals as a sixth man, I believe, with the Phoenix Suns. So he's got some experience. He'd help the Warriors, but to me, he's not going to solve all of their problems like people are making him out to be. And, I can't help but think about last season with Larry Markkinen, where that name was thrown around again and again and again as this player is going to come in and solve all the Warriors' problems. And to me, there's some parallels between him now and Cameron Johnson.
All right, so it sounds like you're more in the mind of like when I, for example, made the mantra at the end of the year, it takes a village. You're more in the camp of they need a couple of players that are better rather than just one guy that can get the job done. Who is that Otto Porter option that, has some talent, fits what you want to do? There's some injury concerns there, but because of that, you can get him on the cheap and financially it makes sense for you. Obviously, a name like DeAnthony Melton's been brought up, but I would think if his name's being tossed around with some of the injuries that you've had, and considering the fact that you're trying to give Steph and Jimmy some more rest during the regular season and find players that, can go out there and win you a game when you run into a hamstring issue for a week, you would have to think that that you would need multiple guys that can get the job done, unless you think Moody and Pods and those internal players are your best option to do so.
Yeah, I think, look, someone like Cameron Johnson's a good player, but I wouldn't want to cash in all my chips just to get him. I do think it's going to take multiple guys. And I think, for example, a player like Karis LeVert, I think would really help the Golden State Warriors. He's someone who creates. He can play the point. He can play the two. He hasn't really been able to stick in a particular situation just because I think of his money as well as the other players that have sort of clogged that guard spot. But I don't know about you, Chuck. Like I don't want Brandon Podziemski on the ball as much as he was this season, next season. I think they need a third guard, and I think they need players. Steve Kerr describes them as connectors, whatever you want to, use in your thesaurus. They just need players that can step in and create. And Steph Curry, I don't think is going to play 70 games next year, or if he does, it's going to be really taxing. I don't expect Jimmy Butler to play 90% of games next season. So they're going to need guys. In a perfect world, Chuck, you're trying to find the 22 version of Jordan Poole, who could play all 82 games, could give you 20, potentially 30 on a given night, and help keep you afloat when those players were either off the floor or completely gone because they were injured or needed rest. So that's the player that they're trying to find, and it's real hard to do it right now.
Well, the issue is that player's supposed to be Jimmy, right? And he is to a certain extent. But when you get to the point in the season where you're looking at 7 games and you're playing one of the best teams in the West, like Minnesota, or maybe next year it's a revamped Houston with potentially Kevin Durant or whatever, like you just need more guys to where if something does happen, as simple as a hamstring, like that was just a grade 1 strain. Like Curry probably would have been back for game 6. Like that was not a death sentence to your season. All you had to do was get one to keep the thing alive. And they were close, but when it came down to it, players like Moody and Podziemski, and specifically those two, just like weren't good enough most of that series. And Lacob had a quote about his draft picks, basically saying that sometimes they get scrutinized because, they didn't show up in the playoffs, whatever it may be. And he says, look, these are good players. They're 21, 22 years old. You can't expect them to be finished products and go out there and get you 25, 30 when the lights shine the brightest. Okay, so he's kind of telling us the story of what we need, because this is an offseason that you go into knowing exactly how you can contend, knowing the players that you have on your roster that can be of value in bringing back the type of players that you need. And the type of players that you need are just players that are battle tested, some grown men. I mean, there's no doubt that Podziemski fits everything you want, except for your timeline, unless he gets a lot better in the next few months and over the course of next season, right?
No, I totally agree. The only issue is that might be their best course of action, not because it's going to make them the best team, but it's just, I wonder, Chuck, how much they really believe next year is their last ride. Like the final ride that Curry talked about reportedly before the Utah Jazz game when they traded for Jimmy Butler. Like, this is our final ride. Well, if they really believe that, and if they're truly all in on getting Steph Curry his 5th championship, or just the best shot to win number 5, then I do think you have to consider about liquidating all assets, and that includes your younger players. I mean, they need role guys. They need ready-made, battle-tested veterans like you're talking about, and those players are not easy to find unless you're willing to give something up. The Warriors, to me, though, haven't really shown a propensity towards playing it for just 1 year. Like even Mike Dunleavy Jr. mentioned 90% focused on next season. That means that, yeah, they're probably not going to want to trade everything beyond 25, 26, because you do have to think about life after Steph. And I think a lot of fans don't want to hear that, because all that matters is what's going on with Steph Curry. And I think their best opportunity to challenge for a championship, however far they get, it is going to be next season.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though. I guess the catch 22 of all this is, one, draft picks right now, you have an assortment of them, right? So if the Warriors truly want to go out and kind of attach a Moody contract, like the name that's been brought up is someone that can come in and deliver that Jordan Poole type punch, is Kobe White. And, you know, he's 6'5", he's a high flying athlete. He could potentially work in this system. And if that does work, his money lines up with Moses Moody. You have draft picks to potentially throw in there for a team like Chicago that is in the biggest rebuild of all rebuilds, it seems. And draft picks would be something that's of value to them. But as long as we're in the position we are now, where the Warriors have, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30 first round draft picks, almost all of them, I believe, maybe not 29, but the rest of them, they own their own pick. And then you have the Butler, Draymond, Jimmy contract coming off the books at the exact same time. Like you can go find some Moses Moody's, and maybe Podziemski becomes that all-star type player that Lacob said, and you can't find someone that brings that rebounding ability at the guard position and that unique skill set, that connecting ability. But for the most part, like you can find players through free agency at that point with all the money that's going to be coming off the books. So I think you have to look at it from a different light. And are Moses Moody and Brandon Podziemski going to be playoff ready guys that you can throw out there? And if a hammy does happen next year, since that's our recency bias of the litmus test, if a hammy does happen, do you trust Moses Moody and Brandon Podziemski to step in and really be that piece next to Jimmy Butler that can hang with a team like Minnesota? Because it's not Draymond Green. He's not that guy offensively. He struggles when Steph Curry's not on the floor on the offensive side of the ball, aside from being a spot-up shooter that can knock him down. And it doesn't seem like there's any desire to trade Draymond Green, move on from that chapter, maybe focus on, a big instead of that and change things. So if that's the case, like what do you do here with the Moody, the Podziemskis, all these younger guys? You think they're staying? You think they're going? Like, putting you on the spot right here.
I would lean towards staying, and I'll put it like this: I think it's fair to say, if you give these young guys another year, because again, and you brought up, I think it was a really good point, that it wasn't like they were asking these guys to win a series. You just got to win one game. Like, you needed to win one game to get you back to where Steph could help you. They couldn't do it. Is that experience of failure in the postseason, along with this summer, good enough to help them develop or grow to the point where next year they could win you one game in the postseason? I mean, Brandon Podziemski played as well as he could. They lost, but he still had a game 3 in the first round series against Houston without Jimmy Butler, where his 26 points were absolutely critical in a victory that helped you win in 7 games. So you're starting to see a little bit more of those small victories. And I think that it's more probable to me, Chuck, to use someone like Kuminga to go out and get a ready-made role player for Curry, for Draymond, for Butler, because Pods and Moody, more Pods than anyone, unfortunately, just because of the position he plays, was allowed the opportunity to develop in real time, whereas Kuminga, just because of the fit, hasn't really been given that chance. So I think someone like Moses also he's more of a Kerr fit. He's more of a Kerr player. And that's why I would lean towards keeping the majority of their young core as opposed to trying to trade them and flip them. And that's also the way I think the front office is looking at this too, because Lacob is not someone that looks just 1 or 2 years down the line. He's always trying to see how he can win 5 years from now. And it's a big goal. It's a lofty expectation, but it's why I would lean towards the Warriors remaining with a lot of their young core this summer.
Yeah, the grass isn't always greener, but I think if Moses Moody can be that guy and we believe he has it in him, do we believe he has it in him is the big question. Like when his draft scout came out, and the numbers back this up, but when his draft scout came out, it was like he's one of the most pure NBA ready shooters in the 2021 class, I believe it was. I mean, so much so to the point where he's a lottery pick. You see him as a 3-and-D guy in the NBA, and the numbers back up that he's a pretty solid shooter, but it just felt like playoff time. Do you want the ball in Moses Moody's hands? I mean, I guess when you're down 25 points, you do, because he's bringing you back into the game, when he's getting his opportunity. Like, that's when he was awesome in some of those series, and he showed it in flashes during the regular season. But unless he's going to be that guy next year, I think you do have the option to, find a way to make this work. And remember, trades are hard. New CBA, it makes it very difficult. However, there are going to be a lot of teams looking to where you can get involved. Even if Giannis is going elsewhere, or KD's going elsewhere, there's still teams that need to get involved with draft picks and contracts and this, to where you can make it you could fit the blueprint, because Steve Kerr has all but said, like, he wants a certain type of player. Wasn't singling out Jonathan Kuminga when he said, I love passers. Passers fit our system. They unlock everything. If you got guys that are standing around, it doesn't matter how much they can shoot or score, because the defense is not going to be broken down. And that's not the way we want to play. So a center position, let's get into that coming up next on Locked On Warriors. What will the Dubs do? When I found out Skims was making underwear for men, I was intrigued. This was about, I'd say, actually a couple months before I started at Locked On. I had heard so much about their quality from their underwear, had to give it a try. It does live up to the hype. I've had issues with underwear in the past, whether it was fit, whether it was comfort, or just finding the right style, and Skims has changed that, because variety is the spice of life, baby. Their men's line offers something for everyone, from boxer briefs to classic briefs, all designed with the perfect balance of comfort and style. I have a couple favorites. I would probably say the Stretch 5 boxer brief is the one that I use the most, because it's not synthetic like a gym short, but it is, an athletic wear type that you can, take out of the gym as well, throw it in the gym bag, wear it before or after. It's not going to be like that, the synthetic ones. And it gives you all the movement you need working out. You can wear it to a party, to the pub, whatever. It's versatile. And again, variety is the spice of life. So shop SKIMS Mens at skims.com/LockedOnNBA and Skims stores. Let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select our podcast in the drop-down menu that follows. It helps out our show. We very much appreciate it. So get some underwear, support your favorite podcast. It's the official underwear partner of the NBA, the WNBA, and USA Basketball. Back to the show. All right, let's get into the center position. Steve Kerr mentioned that Draymond Green, I don't know if he said we don't want Draymond playing any center at all. I don't think he said that. I think he said it's doable for the last 30 games, was his exact quote. But he said we don't want to start the season with Draymond as our starting center. Probably said the same thing last year, and he didn't start the season with Draymond as the starting center. It was Trace Jackson Davis who started off the season in that position. The huge lineup with Wiggins, Kuminga, and Draymond Green, and Kerr went away from that. There were injuries along the way that led to that. But in terms of the center position, you have Trace, you have Quentin Post, who you'd expect to be back. Kevon Looney, unrestricted free agent. Do you get a value deal to the point where you bring him back? If you do, then you're banking on internal development that Trace or Quentin is going to be serviceable, or that by finding someone else, this method of playing small ball can continue to work. I think the proof is in the pudding lately that you need to get someone big, whether they help your transition defense, because we know the Warriors really take pride in that. Someone that can get back, block shots, whether it's someone that can stretch the floor like a Brook Lopez and knock down some threes, whether it's just a Steven Adams who, when the game gets a little slodged up, you can throw him out there and he is a huge body. What do you think the Warriors need to do in terms of how much money and emphasis and just stock they put into that position this offseason?
Well, I don't think a center is going to be incredibly expensive. I kind of get the feeling that if they can find a legitimate upgrade, this is going to be Kevon Looney's last season there. And it pains me to say, because he has been an incredible Warrior for a very long time, but you just have cheaper bodies behind him. Trace Jackson Davis is a decent enough backup, and Quentin Post is maybe your second best shooter right now on your roster, so you need him there. In general, Chuck, they have to get bigger, and it's as much for Draymond Green as it is for the rest of the players, because when they're at their best defensively, generally Draymond is. And I thought that he got worn down over the playoffs by having to guard Şengün. In his own words, he got beat by Julius Randle really for the first time in a postseason series since the 2019 finals against Pascal Siakam. Did he lose a matchup? And if you have any chance of winning a championship, you cannot afford for your best defensive player to lose their matchup. And so whatever it takes to preserve him, and this also applies to Steph and Jimmy, but I think more Draymond than any of the three, you have to figure out a way to keep his minutes, in my opinion, lower than they were even in the championship season. You look at minutes per game when they won it in 2022, and he dealt with a back injury that year. I think he averaged like 27 minutes per game. This most recent year, at age 35, he averaged nearly 30 minutes per game. So you can't tell me that 3 years ago he was playing less than he is right now when he's 3 years older. And moving forward, he's going to do that again. It is as much about position as it is about just total workload. And so finding a center on the cheap, to me, Chuck, whether it's younger, I know people have thrown Steven Adams out as a name, would certainly be interested in. He impacts offensive rebounding at a level that we haven't seen across the league consistently. Jonas Valanciunas was someone that I think I talked to you about at the trade deadline.
I saw him play the Warriors last year, and I'm just like, nah, I just can't shoot, can't really move. He's a huge body, don't get me wrong, but I think when Steve Kerr said, like, they got to be able to fit our system and they have to be able to play. They can't just be huge. I think that was indirectly a direct shot at Valanciunas, with all due respect, one of the best players in the world. But I just don't think he fits necessarily what you're trying to do here, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, in that case, I don't think Steven Adams fits what they're trying to do either. Like,
the reason we think it fits is because he kind of did it with the Rockets and, was able to make that work. But
well, okay. I mean, the center you're looking for is Brook Lopez. Like, is that
no, the center you're looking for in a perfect world is a legit high caliber center. The question is, can you get one of those types of players? The answer is probably not, because in this league, teams aren't just giving up high caliber centers. Like, they're hard to come by. The Embiids of the world, the Sabonis's of the world, like, you're not going to get one of those. So the question is, are you going to use your Kuminga asset on a potential big and bring in someone really nice, or is it going to be like Marcus Thompson mentioning some guys that make a little sense, a Cornette, a Larry Nance, a Day'Ron Sharp, one of those guys that, they're not being paid that much money, but they can kind of give you what Looney's given you the last few years, and enough of a breather to Draymond to where he's really only playing center when it matters, if that.
Well, that's probably who it's going to be. Like, the other thing is too, you have $140 million wrapped up in three players. I mean, you just can't do a whole lot unless Jonathan Kuminga is someone that can fetch you a $25 million player, but that also means that team has to be willing to pay him $25 million. And that's a lot of money for a guy that is relatively unproven. So to me, Chuck, it's probably going to be fishing somewhere towards the edge of the lake. Like, you're not going to be throwing it 50 feet deep and trying to find yourself a big bass. Like, the Warriors are probably going to be shopping on the cheap, I think, for the majority of this offseason.
Even with them knowing that they're so close, because last year, like, that's when they were ready to throw around the big bucks, considering what they knew they needed, which was a second star. They get their second star Butler. Now they need the complementary pieces to be better. But they also know the timeline's running out. They also realize how close they were. Like, they have one other role player that's the right complementary piece. And you don't know how the series goes down. You know, you were close. Like, game 3, you were right there. You were right there to potentially having a chance for Steph to come back down 3-2. Who knows how that goes? You don't think they'd go out and swing for the fences and potentially retool this thing?
Not for a center. I mean, I think that player to me is going to be either a wing or a guard. Like, it's going to be someone that's a playmaker, because also this system is not predicated on dominant center play. It's predicated on versatile wings, defense, getting up and down, being able to shoot and make plays for others. And to Steve Kerr's point, passing. None of that really fits the bill of a big name, big man, as sexy as that might sound to people.
Yeah. I mean, you want some size. He was in the Bay Area. He's a pretty big dude, you know? He could play above the rim all right. I don't think you need a center if you have Giannis on your team. You'll make it work with what you got.
He's the center of the universe at that point.
Yeah, seriously. Maybe he just loves the Bay Area, man. It's a beautiful place. Being someone from Greece, like, maybe he sees he drives into Tiburon, or I guess not drives into Tiburon, but he's, you know, boating over to Tiburon. He's like, oh, this is it's nice over here. It reminds me of a little Santorini action or something along those lines.
Santorini.
Not really close.
Where all the tourists go. That's exactly it. Get over to Tiburon.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Evan Giddings. You can hear him on 95.7 The Game. You can find him on social media, Evan Giddings. Search him, you'll find him. And you can find him on this show moving forward on Tuesdays. He's our Tuesday guy for the time being. So, Evan, we appreciate you. And we'll see you next Tuesday. Peace.